that the brown GS? So awesome. Yeah. Very cool. That's sort of pages. 5
Put
years.
the extra.
Hi, Pooch.
Hey, Max.
Go get that thing. So, normally this YouTube channel, if you've seen any videos before, we do restorations of our own. But that was all inspired by my dad, who has his own story to tell about the little yellow car back there. So, what is that thing?
It's a 1970 Buick Grand Sport.
Sweet. How much did you pay for it?
$40.
$40?
$40 in 1986.
And it didn't look like that?
No.
Where? So, tell me about the process. You had a Camaro at the time, correct?
Had a Camaro at the time, had a Corvette at the time. Always loved Buicks. Had a 68 GS that I drove every day. My friend and I were buying cars for parts, parting them out at swap meets and making extra cash, and came upon this for sale in the newspaper. And,
The classifieds.
classifieds. And we went to look at it and talked to the kid and walked away. And then went back a couple days later with my dad, and he said, "Let's get out of here." And we walked away again. And then I went back a week later with my buddy in a trailer, and the rest is history.
So the guy was trying to junk it, correct?
Yeah, he'd called the junkyard. They said they'd give him $35 for scrap. So I gave him $40.
Okay.
And we pushed it up on the trailer, and when we got it on the trailer, we realized that the car was really nice.
Yep. Frame was good. Wasn't
Frame was
rotted.
Great. Floors were great. Motor was bad. Transmission was bad. Had a one-legger rear end in it. But it's an original GS. And we bought 7 or 8 more cars after that for parts. And scavenged all the good stuff out of the parts cars and sold off all the rest and made enough money to finish it.
So this car started out life white, correct?
It was burgundy with a white hardtop.
Okay.
And,
So it was a
interior was
painted white roof, essentially, right?
painted white roof. They
Same.
used to put vinyl tops on them, but the cars that were in California, supposedly the vinyl would peel, so they decided to paint the roof instead, but still give it that ugly two-tone look.
Yep.
The interior was sort of a camel color. Looked like they had left a orangutan in there and locked the doors and windows and just let it loose, and there wasn't much of the tan interior left.
Okay. So one of the other 7 Grand Sports / Skylark / I guess there were no GSXs involved, right? Just
No.
So this car is an actual GS, and for people who don't know, it's an A-body General Motors vehicle comparable to Chevelles and GTOs and 442s, but this is a Buick. Most people mistake it for a Chevelle at first glance, right? Or something similar, GTO, like we just said, but the base model is the Skylark,
Skylark.
and those usually came with 350s.
Yeah, but you could build up a Skylark with the dealer and turn it into what they call a Skylark Custom.
Really?
And then you could put more accessories and add-ons into a Skylark Custom and make it fancier than a Grand Sport.
Yep.
If you wanted to. Maybe you didn't want the badges on it. That's a Grand Sport for insurance purposes, things like that.
So this car you bought in 86, is that correct?
85, 86.
Okay.
Worked on it till 1991.
So you were how old at that point? Approximately?
I don't know, 23.
Interesting. So this car was originally not a big block car, correct?
Right.
So
350. with a turbo 350. One of the cars I bought was a 455 with a turbo 400, so we took both the engine and the transmission and had them gone through completely and swapped them into this car.
And the 12 bolt came out of a different car?
12 bolt came out of a 1969 Buick Grand Sport. That came out of the junkyard. We paid $400 for the car. And I took the one legger out of this, swapped it into the green 69, and sold the car for more than I paid for it, and got the 12 bolt rear, composite rear for free.
Can't beat that. So this is what you'd consider to be a resto mod, right?
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that it's done a little bit better than what they would have done in the factory. The stripes go inside the doors, which way they never did from the factory. Parts are chrome that weren't chrome from the factory.
Maggie thinks she's going for a ride.
Maggie loves the car.
And we'll show the people who are watching this. This is mostly for my documentation because I think it's the coolest thing in the world. As you can tell, we ended up with another project. If you're not following that, that's a 68 Chevelle. That car came from Alaska, and it's a whole other handful of details, but essentially I fell in love with the A-body lifestyle at a young age too because of this thing, and came across that, couldn't pass it up. So, but anyways, I digress. So this little pile of goodies you see in there is a book of all the what am I trying to say, is a list of what all you've done to it in picture form.
An album of, you know, the day I got it and the day we finally turned the key and drove it out the driveway.
Now the GSXs, which this is not, had a hood tack, correct?
Yep, they did. This has an in-dash tack that came out of one of the parts cars.
Yep.
I think that car had the black interior, so the door panels and the seats came out of that car.
Okay. And this thing, there's one other thing that I really like, and that's the chrome headlight bezels, correct? That was never
a lot of times back in the 1970s, they would paint the bezels the same color as the car. That was a GSX detail. Chrome was the thing back in the day. Maybe now, if I had my choice, I probably would have maybe gone with the yellow painted bezels. Who knows?
The chrome don't get you home, right? So this car was featured in a bunch of magazines, one of which was Hot Rod magazine. Is that right?
Yeah, Hot Rod, Guide to Muscle Cars. I think it was on the cover. Popular Hot Rodding. It was on the cover. Back in the early 90s, there was a magazine called Connecticut Car Magazine, something like that.
Very cool.
And it was on the cover of that magazine as well.
And it's November of 2024. This car was painted in 90 or 91, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lacquer paint, is that what it's called?
Yep, it's lacquered with a polyurethane clear coat over the top.
Very cool. And the stripes are painted underneath the clear coat?
Stripes are painted. They were always painted on these cars from the factory. But you could always feel the stripe when you ran your hand across the top because they just painted them on right over the top of the body color.
And a gentleman named Ron Martin, who's getting out of the business, he painted this car, is that correct?
That's right.
Now I remember you telling me about the stripes and how you found the dimensions in a magazine or something like that.
Yeah, I think nowadays you can probably get the exact dimensions off the internet, but back in those days you had to know somebody who knew somebody that either had the stencils or could give you some dimensions or would let you measure their car with a tape measure, a cloth tape measure.
That's crazy. Now this is, in modern day, we would refer to this wheel and tire setup as a drag pack, but those are aftermarket wheels and they're weld skinnies and, wider than factory 15-inch rims in the back, is that right?
Yeah, 15 by 10 in the back, 15 by 7 in the front.
Very cool. So, do you want to pop the hood just for fun? Sure. And show everyone the spiders and bugs are always attracted to this color. It's so funny. You were saying that the Buick motors, for some reason, the paint would burn off the exhaust?
Yeah, the heads get hot
Heads.
at the header ports. Not much you can do about keeping paint on those heads.
So were
The
the
aluminum heads is the way to go.
yeah were the Skylarks all were the GSs versus Skylarks? Was there a designation with the disc brakes in the front, or did you just opt to do a front wheel disc brake conversion with this car?
This car had drums all the way around.
Yep.
And we visited a junkyard back when they would let you pick your own parts.
Yep.
And I found a 70 Monte Carlo in the junkyard with disc brakes. So we stole all the parts and the portioning valves and all that stuff out of that car.
That's super cool. And it's obviously got power disc brakes. And it's electronic ignition.
Yep.
Very
that
cool.
Stinger is an aftermarket box and electronic distributor.
You got to tell everyone about the fitment of the headers.
Well, as everybody knows, the headers are supposed to fit perfectly, but they don't always fit perfectly. So we had to. Actually, we used a solid steel pipe and a hammer and did a little modification to make sure that header would fit past the
Steering column.
steering column.
Yeah. You gotta tell the people the truth. So this engine's been rebuilt within the last 10 years recently, is that correct?
Yeah, the first time the motor was done was in 1986, and drove it until about 3 years ago and sent it out and had it freshened up again.
Very cool. And then there's other small aftermarket stuff on the inside, like the oil pressure and temperature in the bottom, right?
Yep.
That's cool. And all the interior parts are out of various different cars.
Yeah, the seats came out of one car. They've been reupholstered. The rear seat actually is original, never been recovered.
No way.
The door panels are out of a car that had a brown interior, and we actually dyed these brown door panels black.
It's so awesome. Yeah, if it's cool with you, we'll take the maybe we'll pop the trunk and set the book up in there and flip through some pages. Maggie, what are you doing? I'll grab that book. So this is a documentation of the car on day one.
Yeah, this is the ad that I found in the Meriden newspaper. I think he was asking $200 for the car. I'd buy 10 of them today if I could get them like this.
Yeah. So that's the burgundy with a white roof. Is that the brown GS in the background?
No, actually, that's
it's
Mom's Pinto.
Oh no. The grenade.
That's right.
Very cool.
That's sort of before and after.
So is that the small block in there? Or is that
That's
big
the 350 that
Yeah.
blew up. You can see the push rods are all bent. He was doing neutral drops or something with it. And exploded.
You look exactly the same.
That's me.
Is that Sam?
That's
Hiding
Sam.
on the... Here, flip
Yeah.
that back for a second.
Sam blending in with the snow.
You guys have a fascination for white dogs, I guess.
Yeah.
Thing is so
Anyways, couldn't resist. I bought a really nice set of factory wheels and put brand new tires on it. And couldn't resist putting the wheels on it just to see what
Funny.
it would look like.
Funny how that happens, huh?
Sort of forgot about that.
No engine and transmission in the car, but it's got brand new torque thrusts on it just because I needed those to get the horrible wheels off of it. What is this going on here?
That's rotted radiator support.
Oh.
That's where the battery sits, so the car's always rotted right there.
Mine was exactly the same. But the rear quarter is like really good.
There's the 350 that we built for that car that unfortunately never made it into the car. Tipped it over on the engine stand by accident and cracked the block.
The best thing that ever happened.
My dad and I started tearing it apart the next day. Said we're gonna do this right.
That's so cool.
Pulled the frame out from underneath it, right in his front yard, right in the driveway. Then we bought a condo and moved the whole thing to the condo. Put it up on blocks and started doing the bottom of the car.
All the prime parts hanging from the ceiling.
My neighbors didn't like me very much. It always smelled like paint. That's the car that had the big block and the turbo 400.
Oh God!
For $100, but that was really bad. That car was rotted so bad. I stripped it down to nothing. We took the front suspension out of it. Bought that car in a town close to here.
Yep.
And gutted that thing, put it on my snowmobile trailer, and took it to the dump.
Oh my God! Towing it with the Toyota.
Sold all those parts. Sold the frame. This guy let me gut this car in his yard.
No way.
This is the one that had the in-dash tack and the bucket seats.
Yep.
This one was in another town close to here. An old lady had it. That was a Skylark Custom, but it had bucket seats, console, had all kinds of cool accessories in it. That
No way.
Factory stuff.
And that's actually the same garage you still have out front, right? With That's crazy.
This car I bought on a Friday night and spent the weekend stripping all the parts out of it. And Monday morning it went to the junkyard like that. I was trying to document where the holes go for the emblems, but that wasn't exactly the best way. We ended up making templates. There's two 455s sitting side by side. One of those is the one that's in this car.
Really?
And then the frame went to the sandblaster.
Yep.
And then it got sanded and primed and painted. And
you
all
painted
the suspension parts got painted.
You painted all of it.
I did all that, yeah.
Frame and everything yourself. And we'll climb under there in a second because this car just looks as good as it does in these pictures to this day, which is just the craziest thing.
That's the rolling frame.
It's so cool.
And then I started sanding the underside of the car. And then
Interesting.
primed and painted the floors from underneath. Had a guy come in and weld up some rust quarters.
No way.
And then hoisted the car up and rolled around on a creeper with a spray gun.
So you left we were just talking about the heater setup, so you actually left all that in there.
Yep.
And probably repaired it, put a new...
It is right there.
Yep, that's primed. Okay. God, my tunnel's all mangled in this thing. That looks so good.
This was the day we put the body back on the frame with two engine hoists.
Go back to that. Hold on. Okay, so one hoist in the front, one hoist in the back on opposite sides. Oh my God, it's genius. Where did you pull the trunk lid off and then?
I think I attached.
I see the chains on the
underneath
front.
Where the maybe where the car bolted to the frame.
Okay.
I can't remember how we picked it up in the back.
Yeah. Good. Interesting.
One of the motors had sat outside before I bought it. They didn't bother to tell me that, but it had no spark plugs in it. The pistons were all frozen up in that block. Obviously sent the other motor out and got it back like that.
Wow.
Got it all painted up.
That's awesome.
Painted all the accessories and started putting the engine back in the car.
Sitting on a milk crate on the floor.
And then started doing body work.
Yep.
Paint stripper.
Did you call me?
There's the part of the rear quarter that was rusted after it was repaired.
Okay. The guy that welded that section?
Yeah. So he cut out all the bad metal, welded in new pieces.
Wow.
Fixed that piece right there. We wrapped the whole bottom of the car with garbage bags so that it could go to the paint shop and not ruin all the work that had been done underneath.
Sounds familiar.
There it is on
You got mud tires on that thing?
Snow tires.
Yep.
Body shop.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's hard to believe it's the same car. It's actually starting to turn yellow in some of these pictures.
Oh my God.
Everything's all straight and lined up, washed and prepped and ready to get painted. That's painted. That's in the booth at the paint shop. They had just put the stripes.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then we bought a house here, and we brought the car here. It didn't even have all the pieces on it. None of the trim was on it yet. The bumpers were off.
Yep.
And then finally got it all put back together.
5 years.
Put the extra, the other wheels on it.
Yep.
Looks
awesome.
That guy's taking pictures for one of the magazines. This is a very famous photographer, Gray Baskerville. He works for Hot Rod. He took pictures of the car for Hot Rod magazine.
No way. Is that Frank Murata's?
This is Frank Murata's indoor car show up in Hartford someplace, yeah.
Wow.
That's the interior. Like before and after pictures of the interior.
Yep.
Same car.
Nice bike.
Nice bike.
Bikes. Is that a, what am I looking at? Is that a 66?
I think so, yeah.
That's cool. And that's that car in front of the barn a long time ago.
That's it.
Yep.
5 years documented.
That's incredible. I had another question while we were doing this. Can't remember what it was. Oh, you took this thing on a maiden voyage, right?
Yeah,
How,
we drove to
close the door.
Ohio to a national car show.
Okay.
And,
You hold this thing for a second.
we drove to Ohio. Let's get close the hood. To a national car show? Yep. And when the judges came over, they asked where my trailer was. But none of us, a couple of us had trailers in the car club, but
Yep.
this car got driven.
Hell yeah.
And it made it to Ohio and back.
That's the coolest thing. Is this a different material? You told me something about that. Isn't it?
This is a factory original wing.
That's what it was.
The aftermarket ones are made out of a different material.
Kind of cheesy.
Yeah, so when you pick up a factory original spoiler wing, it weighs, 20 pounds. But
Yep.
the ones you buy online, aftermarket, are probably half that.
That's so cool. So if you had to do it all over again, 5 years invested, would you do it?
Hell yeah.
I figured. So you took this thing, it's now 2024, November of 2024. You drove this thing to a car show and kind of accidentally met up with your old car club, and one of your friends jumped out of the car, saw you in the parking lot, and what were the exact words he said?
He said, how does this thing still look perfect?
That's super cool. So, needless to say, this has been inspiration and for the 68 and why it's taken so long, and similarly to how you talked about how the thing was, dragged through different stages of your life and moved to different locations, starting at Grandpa's house and then to the condo,
Yep.
numerous different places, then ultimately to here. Even though that was all in the same state, this car, I'm sure if anyone else has seen videos about the Chevelle, it's a 68. I bought the car running and driving in Alaska, and some guy had it. It was sitting behind a shop. I went for a run one day, and I diverted from the road to the parking lot, even though the place was closed, and called the next morning because I had climbed under the car and realized that it was solid and straight, at least to my knowledge, and ended up buying the car, drove it home, and then it wouldn't start because the transmission, what happened? The flywheel, like the flex plate, was sheared off. Anyways, needless to say, the car was fun for what it was, and it was super cool to drive it home. But there was basically no rust or rot on the frame. And then what did we do? We dragged it from Alaska to the middle of the United States, like 4,000 miles. And once it got there, we pulled the body off the frame, and similarly to how you pulled the body off the frame, we jacked it up and jammed some 4x4s under it, rolled the frame out. So now it's got a sandblasted, powder coated, rebuilt suspension, and then I had to bolt it all back together in ugly form on the brand new frame and then drag it to another 2,000 miles across the country for the most recent move. And my dad was nice enough to let me leave it in that garage bay for the last year, which is why I drove another couple hours to scoop this thing back up, and we're throwing it back on the trailer. He helped me insulate the garage, so it's got insulation and sheetrock, so we can temperature control the garage for the winter, and I can actually work on this thing without having the elements counteract everything that we're trying to do. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for your time and showing us. If you guys want to see a video about the 62 Biscayne, leave a comment. If you thought this was the coolest video like I do, then give it a thumbs up. If not for the car, then for Maggie being cute. And if you want to see more content about this Chevelle, stay tuned, and you can subscribe. Make sure you see the videos when they're posted. And maybe next video you'll see will be next season with us taking this thing for a ride, maybe going to some car shows. Thanks for watching. Say bye.